Light within my heart, light within my thoughts, light within my words. May one and all and everything, blessed and loved, ever be. Welcome. I am Sister Who. Today I wanted to offer a few comments on the subject of aspirations. I tend to learn a lot from the movies I watch because I guess I've always had a knack for seeing the deeper themes, the meanings, the philosophical threads, I guess you might say, within the movies and television shows that I watch. And reflecting on literature, a well-known quote by Rene Descartes was, "I think, therefore I am," basically saying that what confirms one's own existence is thought, the ability to think, that somehow being a sentient being has to do with having thoughts. In watching a wonderful movie that featured characters and persons from the television series Star Trek: The Next Generation, it was called Star Trek Nemesis. And the basic idea is that Captain Picard winds up in a struggle with an adversary who is in fact a clone of himself. And similarly, Data, the android, a member of the crew, winds up in a conflict with an earlier prototype of himself, whimsically named B4. And there's a point at which Captain Picard is ethically wrestling with how to respond to the way his clone is behaving, the decisions he's making, and so forth, because so much of it reflects a very oppressive childhood and teenage years, a very oppressive upbringing. And he asked Data, if I remember this correctly, something to the effect of, how can I judge him? How can I condemn him? Because if I had been through everything he's been through, I'd be the same. And Data, the android, responds, "The difference between you and Shinzon and me and B4 is that they do not aspire." And so what the movie kind of advances is that to be human in the best sense of the word is to have aspirations, to have some way in which you want to be better than anyone else in your family has been. Not because you're necessarily looking down on them, but simply because you want to accomplish more. You want to go further. You want to do something that's never been done. You want to do what people tell you is impossible for you to do. When I first got into bodybuilding, it was because it was the sport for which I felt least qualified. Ultimately, I did finally get a silver medal in bodybuilding, so I accomplished something. But the point was, even by doing the first competition and going home with a participation medal, I expanded my boundaries. All the things people said, well, you could never do that, I did it. And when I was growing up and saying to people, I'm going to be on television and I'm going to record music someday, and all the people who said, oh, that'll never happen. Well, I have 3 albums of original songs now and over 200 episodes of this TV show. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back, but simply to show that as an example of how somebody said that's impossible, and I said, I need to try. I need to see if it's impossible. I need to go ahead and try to do it. So much of my childhood in this small town in southern Wisconsin seemed to envision that this was all there was to life. And what was so needed was to have aspirations, to say that someone can grow up in a small town and travel far and wide and do things that people in that town would have never imagined doing. climbing mountains, crossing deserts, all traveling to foreign countries, all sorts of different things. What are the limits of human activity? I suppose it's only limited by human imagination, because generally, anytime you say something is impossible, somebody will drive themselves crazy almost trying to find a way to make it happen. And so we keep pushing our abilities further and further and doing things. There was a time when the notion of traveling to the moon was totally ridiculous. Now it's been done because somebody believed in trying what somebody said was impossible. I sometimes mention what I read a number of years ago. Orville and Wilbur Wright, in creating the first airplane, that oft-repeat phrase, if man were meant to fly, God had given him wings, it was said by their uncle, who was a Methodist minister. Their own uncle said, this is impossible, and they basically said, well, then we need to find a way to do it. And people have been doing that for centuries. Somebody says it's impossible, and somebody says, well, then I have to find a way to do it. It's having aspirations. It's saying everything we've been is not the final word on everything we can be. And there is something about reaching beyond ourselves that makes us more truly our best selves. And in that sense, I suppose it makes sense to have some sort of faith. Not necessarily a faith in a human theology, not necessarily a faith in a particular church's dogma or conception of God, but a faith in something beyond oneself with which one can have, by some description, a relationship of wisdom and love. That in reaching, in loving the beauty of the universe enough to reach for it, and applying all the wisdom you can find to developing that relationship, and yet always understanding that there's so much more yet. We accomplish something wonderful, we celebrate it, and we end the party by saying, and there's so much more yet. There's even further that I can go. There's no limit. There's no end point where it makes sense to stop and say, I have reached the plateau, there is nothing more to learn, nothing more to do, etc. I am the best singer in the world, and there's nothing more for me to learn about singing. Well, if you're the best singer in English, why not learn singing in another language? There is no one on earth who knows every human language. There is no one on earth who knows every human language. Consequently, learning more languages and more languages and more languages can make you more fluent in more ways of looking at things, of understanding this process of communication. That's an example of one possible aspiration. But the point being that there's always more. You don't ever have to stop. You can be always expanding, always learning, always growing, always discovering something even more beautiful than anything you've ever seen before. There's always treasure to pursue, I suppose, is what it comes down to. In having aspirations, it's about finding the treasure within yourself, finding treasure within the world around you, and always pursuing that treasure, no matter how elusive it might seem. And in that process, being at least a little bit aware of how you are making progress, and how the treasure may still be beyond our reach, but we've traveled a long ways moving toward this treasure, and we've learned an awful lot moving toward this treasure, and we've become much more than we ever thought we'd be by having a treasure to pursue, and by choosing to pursue that treasure. And yet keeping our eyes and ears open so that we continue learning, rather than trying to shape the pursuit according to a particular dogma. In any case, in talking over aspirations with a friend a number of years ago, I described that during a particularly difficult time in my life, it was proving to be extremely difficult to maintain any piece of Sister Who's ministry. And yet every time I contemplated whether the work of Sister Who was done and it was time to stop being Sister Who and turn my life in other directions, within a couple days somebody would come up to me insisting that Sister Who had made a profound difference in their life in some way. And so I would feel like, okay, I did something right. I guess I'm supposed to keep doing it. And so finally, for 3 weeks, I kept submitting to prayer the question, why is it so important to continue the work of Sister Who? And this was back in 1998. And the answer that finally came through after about 3 weeks was that the ultimate goal for Sister Who was to create a genuinely interfaith spiritual center where people of any faith or none could come to nurture the relationship with the embodiment of love and wisdom, the spiritual embodiment of love and wisdom that is beyond us. That having, nurturing the relationship between humanity and the divine, between ourselves and that which is greater than ourselves, by whatever description we give to it, to nurture that relationship so that we can constantly be loving and interacting with that which is greater than ourselves and not become narcissistically stagnant, knowing only what already exists and nothing more ever. And so as I was sharing with this friend about Sister Who's ultimate aspiration being a genuinely interfaith spiritual center, no dogma, no discrimination, just nurture the relationship between human and divine and trust the divine, trust God to shape that relationship with each individual in whatever way it needed to be shaped. Because I think only God and you can say what's the right way for your faith to express itself, through one religion or another, or through no particular institutionalized religion, but through your own self-styled spiritual practice, to find something that nurtures your relationship nonetheless. And the friend with whom I was talking mentioned that for her it was wanting people to experience and discover art, whether they felt themselves to be artistic or not. And so her vision was to create an art sanctuary, a place where people could come, even if they had no money whatsoever, and have the resources and the support to experiment with drawing, with painting, with sculpting, with pottery, with any number of creative mediums. And in even the most unlikely people, in dabbling with something creative, discovering a new part of themselves, a new treasure within themselves that they possibly never realized was there. And so as we were talking about these two dreams, these great dreams, these visions, these great dreams in the sense that it's not so much that it's my vision or her vision, as that it's a vision of a way that each of us could contribute something beautiful and empowering to humanity, that our lives could be about something bigger than ourselves. And she asked me to write a song about that, because she had heard some of the other songs I'd written, and so she asked if I could write a song about that sort of struggle. And I really wasn't sure how to address it, because it was as if I would have to look at the challenge through her eyes in using my imagination, and also to kind of weave that together somehow with looking at my great dream of an interfaith center through my own eyes, and somehow bringing this all together and understanding that we're all part of each other. And so it's not so much about which one is mine and which one is hers, but it's more about sharing the beautiful dreams and realizing that the manifestation of any dream generally involves collaboration between multiple people. That it's not just her creating an art sanctuary, but it's her creating an art sanctuary and having people willing to give it a try, willing to show up and say, I'm not artistic. I've never touched a paintbrush in my life, but I want to do something creative. Can you help me? And having people show up at my interfaith center and say, I don't know if God exists or not. I don't know who or what God is. I know I'm not content with all the answers the churches and various religions give, but it seems to me there must be something. And have, and me being able to greet that person and say, let's sit here and think about it. Let's feel with our hearts. Let's sing with our voices. Let's dance with our hands and feet. I recall seeing a poster once that said, he who sings prays twice. And I kind of thought, well, if you can dance your prayers, does that make it like 3 times? If it's not only the words you sing, but it's also giving it movement with your body and praying with your whole body in a way that's not vulgar, but that is totally oriented around the love and wisdom that needs to pass between ourselves and that which is greater than ourselves. In any case, we talked, I think it was a Monday morning, and it was that evening as I was meditating upon all the different aspects of her dream as she described it to me, and the dream that had been revealed to me of Sister Who having an interfaith spiritual center, and humanity finally remembering that what really matters is how we take care of each other and how we nurture the best possibilities in each other. And this was the song that came through at that point, and it was one of those special songs where, being in a prayerful mind and heart sort of place, it came through. I wrote it down, and essentially when I finished writing the last word of the last verse, the song was done, and it's never been changed from that time to this. And I can only say that about 2 or 3 of the songs I've done, but this was one of them, and I'd like to share it with you. And I decided to call it Sacred Dreams. As I walked into the room, he stared down at the floor. Never been creative, he said to me, but I long for something more. And now you're here, I smiled to him, to learn what color is for. Let's paint the image your soul knows through imagination's door. I placed the brush within his hand, calloused and untrained, and guided him to trust its touch, which can never be explained. A light began to shine at last from his deep and darkened eyes, and then I woke within my bed to once again realize the dream I have has yet to find its perfect time and place, yet by the holiness and love it holds, I know I'll see its face as the one you've chosen to bestow within this very troubled time. I'll do my best to serve, dear God, this healing touch of thine. The towers round the worship space and the open frame above, people gather within to learn to pray in peace and love. each as different as can be in what they call divine, yet each one needing something more to at last step across the line. I take their hands and smile again as our steps begin to dance. I help them find the confidence to finally take a chance. I shine my light through each word I speak, through each insight I convey, then wake again within my bed and wistfully say, the dream I have has yet to find its perfect time and place, yet by the holiness and love it holds, I know I'll see its face, as the one you've chosen to bestow within this very troubled time. I'll do my best to serve, dear God, this healing touch of thine. A world of doubt, a world of fear, a world of broken glass, a world of wounded, weary ones wanting love nearby to pass. Where would a dreamer be needed more than where dreams cannot be found? Where better the musicians tune than where there isn't any sound? Once again I drift off to sleep, knowing soon the day will come when what was a dream is now the world playing in the sun. Yet if for now it must be a dream, it's a dream that I will hold until that morning bright and clear when such beauty will unfold. The dream I have has yet to find its perfect time and place, yet by the holiness and love it holds, I know I'll see its face, as the one you've chosen to bestow within this very troubled time. I'll do my best to serve, dear God, this healing touch of thine. Like the lily's flower, I'll do my best to bloom at the perfect time. There will always be questions. There will probably, perhaps hopefully, always be longings. The primary requirement is to have enough faith in the possibility to show up and do whatever you can. I recall seeing a movie about Mother Teresa of Calcutta, this nun who worked for so many, many, many years among the poorest of the poor. And if I remember it correctly, it was something to the effect that when somebody told her she was this extraordinary, incredible, saintly person, and she said, "Oh, it's no big deal. It's about seeing what you can, it's about going somewhere, seeing what you can do, and doing it." And there are so many people who maybe have, well, on a basic level, there are so many who don't go anywhere. If they do go anywhere, they don't see what they can do there. And if they do see what they can do there, they don't do it. And so, simply by being someone who thinks and feels, someone who can think and love, wherever you go, to see whatever good you can do there, and to be faithful to do it. And that's really where it all begins. It doesn't have to be some grand heroic thing. In some small way, putting a moment of love and wisdom into an otherwise despairing, discouraging, dark moment may be the most heroic thing of all. When we look in the mirror and we see the person who can love, who can think, who can feel, who can do whatever it is we can do, and maybe we can't do everything, what we can do, that's what we have the opportunity to do. May love and wisdom fill your life and aspirations and guide you in all that you do and are today. Thank you for watching.